So today is Groundhog Day. And when I think of Groundhog Day, I always think of the movie with Bill Murray. Probably most of you have seen it, where he keeps waking up to the same day over and over and over and over. And at first he's angry that he's, living the same day. The situations, the circumstances of the day don't change, but the way he reacts to them change. And at first he's angry, and then he starts like, hey, I could do something different here. It's a great way of inviting us, if we look at that. Like, we don't get to live another day over and over and over. We start where we are, but we can practice. We can practice how we respond to life. We can practice how we, and not maybe react to life. I noticed that I've talked about my drive home from here often, maybe a little too often, but how it's like like a test for me, kind of. How can I be kinder on the road in my own head and in the privacy of my own car? I realized this week that I could change how I look at it. Like, it all starts within us. And so my approach to driving home is always like, I'm going into battle, and I better put on my armor because, there's going to be just chaos out there on the road. And so this week I decided, let's have a different approach. Why don't we try what I say I'm always telling all of you to try? And that is to take it in within and appreciate. Be in a state of gratitude that I have a safe car, that everybody is trying to go home or go somewhere, and we're not there to fight. We're there to just get to our destination. And so I had that attitude on Thursday when I went home from here at a time when the traffic's pretty bad. Usually, I think I left here about 5:30, and it was a very pleasant experience. There were no idiots on the road at all. Amazing how that works. Like, it all starts within. If I could just bless everyone before I leave, we're all going to get along just fine on our drive. So it starts within. And that's why I love this season that we just headed into, just started on Thursday, the season for nonviolence. It's a grassroots campaign to bring awareness to how nonviolence can really change how we approach life, how we approach others, how we approach society. And this 64-day started in 1998 by Gandhi's grandson, Arun Gandhi, and it is on either end of the assassination of Gandhi on January 30th, and then it ends on April 4th, which was the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And so those two men, had such an impact on the world, on their approach to life, on their approach to nonviolence and nonviolent resistance. And it all starts within us. It starts with our thoughts. It's the violence starts in us, not out there. And so it's a 64 days of practicing this. And the Association for Global New Thought, which is the organization that supports this and has a lot of resources, has every day, it's a peace mandala, and every day you can go to the agnt.org website, and you can look up what the word of the day is. Today is caring. Caring. That we want to care for ourselves and care for each other, but we have to first care for our bodies and our mental health and our physical health and our spiritual health. And so when we care for ourselves, then we're more likely to care for others. And so I love that every day during these 64 days, this site gives us things to practice. So today, practice. It says list 5 ways that you can take better care of yourself. Mentally, spiritually, physically. How can you take better care of yourself? Because when we take care of ourselves, we'll take care of everyone else. We're more capable of it. And so let's show that first image. So I was talking about Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and their purpose is the next one. The purpose of the Association of a Season for Nonviolence is to create an awareness of nonviolent principles and practice as a powerful way to heal, transform, and empower our lives and our communities. And then Gandhi says this: "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fail. They always fall. Think of it, always." I love that. The ways of truth and love always win. They always win. This is so in alignment with our unity principles. There's only one power and one presence, and that one power is good. That one power is love. And that one power is what we are, of that same essence. The ways of truth and love always win. If we're not seeing that, it's because there's more to come. The story's not finished. And then Martin Luther King Jr. says this: "Nonviolence means avoiding not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. You not only refuse to shoot a man, but you refuse to hate him." That's how it starts within. Hate is something we learn. It's not something we're born with. We don't have that capacity to hate as an infant, as a child. We learn it. And so if we learn it, we can also unlearn it through education, through practicing compassion, through caring for ourselves, caring for others, through understanding, through taking accountability for ourselves, realizing that unity's third principle, that our experience of life starts with our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions. And then Gandhi says this too. There's so many quotes from both of them. "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." You think about it. Forgiveness is not easy. It's hard to forgive. And Jesus says we must forgive 70 times 7, meaning ongoing, constantly forgiving. And I love how it's also said that to forgive is to give for inner peace, to give for more of an experience of love, give for what we want to see in the world. And Gandhi said we are the change. If we have to be the change we want to see. It has to start with us. It has to start with us. This week I watched a documentary, and I watched it twice so I could really take it in. It was hard to watch, and it was listed on the list of films for Season for Nonviolence, and it's called Fambul Talk. Fambul Talk is a campaign that started after the Civil War in Sierra Leone. It's Western Africa country that had about 11 years of civil war that was extremely brutal. Tens of thousands of women were raped. Children were captured and made into soldiers. Thousands of people had amputations, beheadings, just atrocities that we can't imagine. It was just a horrific time in that country, those 11 years. And one young man who is from Sierra Leone, his name is John Culker, and he started and co-founded this way of reconciliation called Fambul Talk. And Fambul talk means family talk. He said, for all the horrible brutalness that happened during the Civil War, one thing that nothing could kill was the culture in Sierra Leone of forgiveness. That they are forgiving people. They were people that community meant everything. And when you were raised in a community, yes, you had a biological mother and father, but the whole community raised you. You had many parents. Everybody was considered your brother and sister. Everybody was considered family. And they would have a bonfire every night, and where people got a chance to talk through their issues. And so after the Civil War ended in 2002, there were the courts where only 13 people were prosecuted. The rest were set free. These people that committed these horrible crimes against their own community members were sent to go back to their communities, and that was like a time bomb, right? Without having some way of reconciling. And so John Culker co-founded this Fambul Talk, where they gave these communities an opportunity. And it was a long process. It doesn't happen overnight, but gave them an opportunity to have their bonfires, to let the people, the victims and the perpetrators, talk to one another in front of the community. It required the ones who committed the violence to acknowledge what they did. And it required the ones who were victims of the violence to forgive them or not in front of the whole community. And so we see in this documentary that I watched, there was a young man, two young men who were captured. They were best friends. And they were captured, and one of them was told to kill the father of the other, or to kill his own father, and he said, no, I won't. And so the best friend said, you need to kill that father. And so he did, because he was shot. He got shot. And then he said, they told him, you need to beat up your best friend. And we'll kill you. They put a gun to his head and said, we will, if you don't do this, we're going to kill you. And so he did. He beat up his friend. So these two are in this Fambul Talk during a bonfire, and they're talking in front of everyone and hearing the whole story. And the one being accountable for what he did and apologizing for what he did. And the other, the one who was beat up, said, I forgive you. There's so much power in that. There's so much healing that takes place in that. There was another young woman who was 13 who got raped by 15 men. And they all came at her and after her, and she thought she was safe because her uncle was one of them. And he was one that raped her too. And they reconciled at one of these bonfires as well. And she told in front of the community, this is what you did to me. I thought I was safe. You're my uncle. And he said, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I regret what I did. And see how it's so healing, and that we are all human, and we all make mistakes. And to acknowledge our mistakes goes a long way. To apologize goes a long way for the other person to be able to release it and forgive. And the most impactful one of all of these was a man named Muhammad Savage, who was one of the leaders, who in the beginning was refusing. He wouldn't even acknowledge that he did anything. I wasn't even there, his village. And he did horrific things to his community members. And this John Calker, who was the founder of Fambul Talk, said, he was talking to him, and he kept trying to say, how are you going to go back to your community? Where are you going to go? And he's like, I'm not that man. They called him Mr. Die. It was his nickname. And finally, Savage watched a video of another one of his fellow rebels who they haven't been able to find, but it was his sister. And the sister said, we have apologized to the community on his behalf, on my brother's behalf. And Savage thought, there's much more detail, but Savage thought that she was speaking directly to him, and he said, I need to go back. It was the first leader that they had participate in one of these campfires, these bonfires. And in it, many people got up and talked about what he did to their family. And he kneeled down, and he did not offer any excuses. He just said, I'm sorry. That is not the person I want to be. That is not who I am now. And it was very healing for the community. And these bonfires were just the beginning. This had to happen first for them to move forward as a community. And then they would have a cleansing ceremony the next day where the elders came and would bless the space and talk to their ancestors and make sure the ancestors knew that apologies had been spoken and forgiveness had been granted. And we want to move on as a community. It's beautiful the way that these people are able to forgive something so horrible and to welcome them back into their community. Hard for us to imagine here. But something similar in philosophy does happen here. And I've got Johnny Dario who's going to come up and talk to you about what he's been involved in. So Johnny, come on up.
Wow, thank you, Sue. That's pretty powerful and heavy. So you want me to talk about, lighten this up a little bit and talk about pickleball, right? Pickleball can be a violent sport. I want to share about a project that Richard Mansbach and Tom Thorpe and I have been involved with called Restorative Approaches to Intimate Violence, or RAVE. It is for people who have been harmed or have caused harm in a personal, intimate relationship. Did you know that 1 in 3 women and 2 in 5 men have experienced abuse in their intimate relationships? Every minute, 32 people are abused in some way in intimate relationships. More than 16 million people in this country suffer from partner abuse. This RAVE project offers options for individuals outside of the criminal justice, law enforcement, or shelter care systems. People voluntarily choose to participate as a core member in a circle that guides a circle of 4 or 5 trained individuals who function as facilitators and community members in a healing journey. This exploration is confidential and focuses on building relationship and trust, repairing harm, taking responsibility, learning new behaviors, and respecting boundaries. When I have participated in these circles, all completely voluntary with no requirements, I've experienced the wonder of healing when we hold space for each other, when we see, hear, and respect where we are in that moment without judgment. It's amazing how healing takes place when we feel each other's humanity. We don't try to fix it for you, but we can be with you when you fix it for yourself. It's awe-inspiring to see how this simple way of holding a sacred space enhances connection, understanding, intimacy, and healing. And Rebecca, I like the words of your song that talked about to see the world through someone else's eyes. I know we make a difference in the lives of those who have chosen to participate. I've experienced it firsthand. Ellie was our first core member in one of our circles, and she came to us voluntarily, of course, chose this because she was experiencing emotional abuse in her marriage, feeling helpless, had no boundaries, and was fearful. She needed a safe place to vent, for us to listen, accept, not judge. And she didn't tell her husband that she was participating in these circles. Little by little, she grew more empowered, and at some point in the process, she said, I've got this. I love my husband, and I want this relationship to work, but I've got boundaries no one is going to deter from me, and I will not surrender myself when things get scary. Another core member in another circle, Arthur, he was on probation because he had physically assaulted his girlfriend, who was the mother of his 2 young children. He's been addicted to drugs for 20 years, but mostly cocaine, and he chose this path voluntarily because he wanted to change his life, his behaviors, and find a healing path. Now he's fathering his 2 young children. He's been trained as a community member in this RAVE project. The journey is transformative. I've learned a lot about this open-hearted way of listening, of holding a safe container for someone with compassion and caring. It's simple, yet profound. Healing seems almost miraculous when we can share our humanity. I'm learning to bring this way of being into my own personal relationships with Kim, with my adult children, with friends. My hope is that RAVE is also making a difference in interrupting the cycles of violence across families, children, relatives, and future generations. We are now looking at project expansion for youth engaged in or affected by family violence. In closing, there is more information on our website, ravecircle.org. People can refer themselves confidentially to this program, this project. There is community member orientation and training that's going to occur in March for anyone interested. Of course, tax-deductible donations can help our new 501c3 nonprofit grow, and we can help change the world, one individual, one family, one community at a time. I'll be in Fellowship Hall if you have any questions, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Johnny. So powerful when we can look at different ways of allowing ourselves to heal. And I could have left it on a more positive note because I apologize for leaving you in the heaviness. Muhammad Savage, after he did his apology to his community and was welcomed back into his community, he became an employee of Fabul Talk. And he went to, there was like 9,000 ex-rebels that were living in this one town, and the politicians were trying to hire them to create chaos and violence to sway the elections one way or the other. And so Fabul Talk decided that they were going to have a counter initiative and do a workshop there. Do a series of workshops there to let the ex-combatives know there's a different way. There's a different way to be. And Savage was one of the speakers there. And he said, look, if I can do it, you can do it. If you want to be welcomed back into your community, there's a way. You have to acknowledge what you've done and the harm that you've caused and the hurt that you've caused. And it was very moving to see them get interviewed, different ones of them that decided they wanted to be different. They wanted their lives to be different. They wanted to be back. They wanted to be welcomed back into their community. And then there's another short video on the site that talks about a middle school class in Philadelphia who had been studying Africa in different areas of Africa for the whole year. And they became aware of this idea of Fambul Talk, and they watched one of the documentaries. There's one that's more educational, if it's a little shorter. And so the teacher said, how do you show a logo that for this, like for justice? What is justice, and how do we even talk about it? And then she showed them what the one for Fambul Talk was. There's this, and the kids said, oh, what I love about that is children can be part of this too. And they're like, absolutely, children are part of this. They're part of the community. And so not long after that, maybe 2 weeks after that, the kids were on a nature walk, and one of the girls got very angry about something, and she slapped somebody. And she felt terrible. And she said, maybe we need a Fambul Talk for our class. And they got in a circle, and she apologized, and she said, I was so angry, and I don't know how to process that. And the person that she slapped forgave her. And it was just a beautiful exchange of the two of them. This is a way in front of the whole class. And she said, I won't do that again, because I admitted to my whole class that I was wrong. And so all of them are going to help me stay accountable. And then the teachers recognized that in 6th grade, there was a lot of harassing and bullying going on, and making fun of people if they raised their hand and got an answer wrong. And the teachers decided, we need a Fambul Talk. And so they had one, and they said for like 2 minutes, nobody spoke at all. They said, we're gonna just sit here together. The power of the silence. Until finally one little boy got up, Leo, and it was like a confession. And he said, I haven't been very nice to my classmates. I have made fun of people when they get an answer wrong. I have not been nice to my friends. I have not been nice to the girls. And it was this long confession, and then they forgave him. And then another person spoke, and then another person spoke. And they said it was like 3.5 hours of this Fambul Talk for their classroom. And they said, did it solve everything? No, but it was a beginning. It was a beginning of healing. It was the beginning of getting to hear an entire story, somebody else's story, instead of just putting them in a box. And that's what A Season for Nonviolence is all about letting us practice being different, being more loving, being more peaceful. My white stone word this year is free. Not that I'm cheap, and not that I want to quit my job, neither. But free of constrictions, free of judgment, free of control, free of cravings, free of needing to have things go a certain way. And so every time I look at my stone, I get the choice. I have a choice. Do I want to stay in my small self? Or do I want to expand? Do I want to release myself from the prison I put myself in? And all of us put ourselves in a prison in our own minds, thinking that things have to be a certain way, our way. Instead, being open, instead being more of our true self. Instead, when I'm free, I can be who I came here to be. I can be the Christ, as each of us can be. So use this week, not this week, well, use this week, but the next 60-some days to practice nonviolence. Go to the agnt.org website. There's lots of tools there. I've got on the back table as you walk out this family pledge of nonviolence if you want to pick one up for your family. It's what, as a family, this is what we're going to practice. Respect, communicate better, listen, forgive, play creatively, be courageous. If you as your family want to do that, how much closer can you be as a family with your kids? And kids, they're like sponges. This one little girl said, it's like we were subconsciously building a bridge with the kids in Sierra Leone. Like a sixth grader talking about subconsciously building a bridge. It was so cool to hear them. But we can do this. We can do this. So practice nonviolence in yourself, in your minds, in your consciousness, in your families, in your circle, and here at Columbine. So, namaste. Peace be with you.